evening and welcome. I'm Chief Meteorologist Steve Jervey. We're coming to you from the banks of the Hillsborough River in downtown Tampa. Tonight we'll share stories about the power of hurricanes, their potential for harm and destruction, and show you how to prepare should one head our way. So sit back and watch as we bring you Surviving the Storm, a Storm Teammate special. The Gulf Coast is famous the world over for its unparalleled beauty. But it was violent and severe weather that helped create these places we enjoy for our recreation, sport, and leisure. Take a tour on Eagle 8 as we show you the parts of our coastline forged by storms and hurricanes. Tampa Bay residents and visitors love our beautiful white beaches. Anglers and boaters covet our coves and untouched estuaries. But some of these landscapes didn't exist as they do today. They were forged in violence by powerful hurricanes that changed everything in just a matter of hours. Johns Pass is one of Pinellas County's most popular tourist and shopping destinations. Cars breeze across the bridge linking Madeira Beach on the north with Treasure Island to the south. But less than 200 years ago, this area looked nothing like it does today. When Florida was mostly wilderness, at the height of the Seminole Wars, the Great Gale of 1848 made a direct hit near Clearwater Beach in late September. Today, the storm would have been classified at least as a Category 4 hurricane and destroyed what little was built along the coast at the time. The 130-mile-per-hour winds, enormous waves, and 15-foot storm surge gouged out a large section of beach, forming what we now call Johns Pass. The storm also cut many new inlets and altered the geography so much, new navigational maps had to be drawn. As Eagle 8 swings south, it gives us a bird's-eye view of Egmont Key, a tiny island whose lighthouse has welcomed ships to Tampa Bay for centuries. The lighthouse you see was completed in 1858 and replaced the one destroyed by the 1848 storm. An old story tells how the lighthouse keeper and his wife survived the storm in a rowboat tied to the top of a palm tree in the midst of the storm. Egmont Key has changed shape many times over the decades, and even today, its beaches constantly battle erosion. The 1848 storm roared into Sarasota Bay, splicing Sarasota's Palm Island into two to form New Pass and creating Longboat and Lido. But it was a 20th century hurricane in October 1921 that altered Sarasota's Siesta Key to make a lagoon out of Blind Pass and seal off Midnight Pass farther south. These dramatic changes show that it just takes one hurricane to cause widespread damage and devastation, and why all of us need to prepare to survive the storm. Our most recent hurricane season will forever be known as the year Dorian formed in the Atlantic and grew to become one of the most powerful and destructive hurricanes ever observed. Dorian formed in mid-August as a tropical wave west of Africa. Rapidly organizing, it then became a hurricane in just days over the Greater Antilles. The storm made landfall on the morning of September 1st at Elbow Cay in the Bahamas as a Category 5 hurricane with 185-mile-per-hour winds.
Everything is completely destroyed.
Because the hurricane stalled for 2 days over the Bahamas, it compounded the damage to the islands before turning to move up the east coast. The eastern Bahamas, including Elbow Cay and Marsh Harbor, took the full force of the storm, with heavy rainfall, excessively high winds, and a storm surge over 20 feet. This is also where some of the most vulnerable island residents rode out the storm. Damage assessments put Dorian as the costliest disaster in Bahamian history, estimated at more than $3 billion. At least 70,000 people were left homeless. Today, hundreds more are still unaccounted for. Dorian was so destructive, there's no telling if life in this region will ever be the same. Hurricane Dorian broke several meteorological records. Storm Teammate meteorologist Julie Phillips has been studying the record books and put together this report we call Dorian by the numbers.
The 2019 hurricane season will be remembered for one storm, Dorian. Here's a look at Dorian by the numbers. 185 miles per hour. That's how strong Dorian's winds were when it hit the Abaco Islands of the Bahamas September 1st. So how does Dorian rank in comparison to other landfalling hurricanes? Well, it's the strongest hurricane to ever make landfall in the Atlantic Basin. Tying with the 1935 Labor Day hurricane, Dorian is also the second strongest hurricane to ever form in the Atlantic, only behind Hurricane Allen. And with 185-mile-per-hour max winds, it holds that position alongside Wilma, Gilbert, and the Labor Day hurricane of 1935. And who can forget Dorian hitting the brakes right over the Bahamas? It tracked only 25 miles in 24 hours. Since 1950, only Hurricane Betsy has had a 24-hour period with that little movement. And 910 millibar central pressure. So it's not the biggest standout there, but it still puts Dorian as having the 9th lowest central pressure on record. And Dorian's Cat 5 status meant a 4-year streak of Category 5 storms in the Atlantic. A streak that long has never happened before, but let's hope that streak ends in 2020. I'm Storm Team 8 meteorologist Julie Phillips.
Coming up next on Surviving the Storm, Hurricane Dorian ravaged the Bahamas for days. When we come back, a first-hand look at the devastation from the ground and from above, from Drone 8's perspective. And later, take a trip on board a Hurricane Hunter aircraft when Surviving the Storm continues. Officially, 70 people died in the Bahamas from Hurricane Dorian. The level of destruction from Dorian in some areas of the Bahamas is simply overwhelming. 8 on Your Side reporter Jeff Patterson visited one of the hardest hit areas. He found people facing great hardship weeks after the storm has passed.
This is Marsh Harbor, and an area that has the worst destruction from a hurricane that I've ever seen. This area was known as the Mud. Once a community of Haitians, 300 homes that were wiped off the map by wind and storm surge. Huge shipping containers from the port brought in by the waves washed over the homes like boulders down a hill.
Take a look at this. You're looking at remnants of people's lives, a worker's pants, his tools scattered all around us, and there is just nowhere for them to live now.
As I drove around the destruction on the island, I came upon a family of Haitians who had been forced to move to this shell of a building when their home was wiped out by Dorian.
If I was stay home, I ain't be here to talking to you now.
Charity Alado and his family are now just barely hanging on.
Boy, life hard. You don't have no place to live.
He's angry because Alado says the Bahamian government has all but forgotten the Haitian community of Marsh Harbor. The Haitians are the working class here. They toil as laborers and workers for tourist destinations. Many Haitians had little before the hurricane. They have even less now.
I's a Haitian Bahamian, and I ain't seen no one help me yet.
A once thriving downtown Marsh Harbor is now empty. Huge boats have been tossed onto city streets. The buildings that remain are vacant, and all businesses here are closed. And it struck me that the people I had just met have no work, no place to live, and the foundations of their homes are all that remain, meaning they will now have to rebuild their lives from the ground up. Jeff Patterson, 8 on Your Side.
Much of what we learn about the development of active hurricanes comes from a group of adventurous scientists. When we come back, we meet the NOAA Hurricane Hunters and go behind the scenes inside their headquarters. Plus, Floridians lending a hand to help restore the hardest hit areas of the Bahamas. At any given time, somewhere in the world, clouds are building, wind and waves pick up, and the sky grows dark. That's the signal for hurricane hunters to gear up and head into the center of the Earth's most troublesome weather. Imagine the worst, most turbulent airplane ride of your life, only it lasts for hours and hours. That's a day at the office for a hurricane hunter. A series of radar systems on the back and underneath the P-3 and on the Gulfstream jet capture radar images. Both planes deployed dozens of the all-important wind dropsondes, cardboard tubes filled with sensors that send back data about location, wind speed, temperature, humidity, and air pressure.
So as it's falling, it sends that information back to the aircraft 4 times a second. 4 times a second.
That information is combined and sent to the National Hurricane Center, then distributed around the world to scientists making forecast models. Many on board these planes have a personal investment in their work since they live in hurricane country too.
And all of us that grew up here, we're keenly aware of those risks and the challenges associated with hurricanes. So there's no way that I could say that it doesn't have more of an impact for me. I love being a part of the flight, the crew, the mission, the data collection, serving the community, and at the end of the day, helping preserve life and property, and that's what we're here to do.
The NOAA Hurricane Hunters home headquarters is located right here in the Bay Area. We had a chance to visit with the team as they were settling into their new Flight Operations Center. It's an ideal facility in an ideal location. The 100,000 square foot NOAA Aircraft Operations Center is located right in the middle of the state at Lakeland Linder International Airport. From here, a fleet of uniquely equipped aircraft take flight around the world on data gathering missions. And it's not just to meet up with hurricanes, according to NOAA Flight Director Michael Holmes.
I mean, you're largely known for the Hurricane Hunter. Would you consider that your primary mission?
That's our bread and butter mission, certainly. So we're tasked 1 June through 30 November to support a range of missions tasked by the Hurricane Center, the Environmental Modeling Center, EMC. Those are operational taskings. And then we have a full range of research taskings available to this aircraft as well.
Research that may include the study of changing climates, severe weather, the Earth's oceans, coastlines, atmosphere, and even gravity. NOAA moved into this new facility in 2018. For years, they had been located in the historic Hangar 5 at MacDill Air Force Base in Tampa. But when the base needed more room, NOAA needed to relocate. The new facility has room for 9 NOAA aircraft. The primary planes, 2 Lockheed WP-3D Orion propeller planes nicknamed Kermit and Miss Piggy. They're the ones famous for flying directly into the hurricanes and through the eye wall at between 8 and 10,000 feet. These flying laboratories accommodate 8 crew and up to a dozen scientists. Also critical to hurricane hunting missions is Gonzo, a G4 Gulfstream jet.
Everything's looking good.
This plane flies around and above the storm system at altitudes of more than 40,000 feet. Other NOAA planes that come and go from Lakeland are the Beechcraft King Air and the de Havilland Twin Otter. Although some of these planes may at first glance look less than late model, NOAA makes sure they're in top running order.
We have a lot of experience here. We have triple, quadruple checks on all the aircraft. There are at least, everybody in the crew has looked on the outside of the airplane to make sure there's no panels missing or no screws loose. We check everything on the inside 2-3 times. We've been through this a lot.
NOAA pilots don't climb into the cockpit without a lot of prior experience. Most are Navy or other military service veterans.
So it was a very natural, easy transition. The big difference here was the material condition of our aircraft are immensely better than the Navy. We put a lot of pride. The folks here who fly on the planes actually work on the planes, so there's a lot of pride that goes into their work, a lot of attention to detail, and so these planes are in tremendously good shape for their age.
Not long after Dorian hit the Bahamas, we sent 8 on Your Side's Jeff Patterson to a small island that took the brunt of the storm. He viewed the damage, checked on how the people were affected, and saw what Floridians can learn from the experience. He found resilience in a place called HOPETOwn.
This is what is left of HOPETOwn on Elbow Cay in the northern end of the Bahamas. Once a pristine slice of heaven with colorful British colonial homes. Floridians have seen hurricane damage before, but seldom like this. The fury and absolute power of Mother Nature in the form of a powerful Category 5 hurricane ripped apart buildings and shattered lives. We walked down a narrow road in HOPETOwn, littered with boats and belongings and remnants of buildings. Homes that have lasted for generations are now on their sides, and the cleanup has a long way to go. As we walk through town, I noticed a woman wearing a Tampa Bay Rays hat surrounded by rubble. The woman is Jen Walker from Lakeland. She's seen destruction from Charlie, Francis, Michael, and Irma. And now, like everyone else here, she can add Dorian.
People's lives have been completely uprooted. Homes, communities have been flattened.
Jen knows, like every Floridian, when these people tell her they've lost everything, their lives are busted, but not broken.
But I will say this, despite it all, they all have a smile on their face. And they all say, we're alive, it's a new day, and we're gonna be stronger.
They're here with a nonprofit volunteer group from Stuart, Florida, helping where they can.
You got it? Yeah. We've been cleaning up churches, some people's homes, distributing food, clothes to families, working with kids, getting them bikes.
But one iconic feature of the island is up and running again. The lighthouse in Hopetown is one of the most recognizable features of the Abaco Islands and one of the last operational kerosene-fueled lighthouses anywhere in the world.
Anyone who's ever been to Hopetown or been to the Abacos relates to that lighthouse.
Lifelong island residents worked hard to restore the lighthouse, even before they worked to restore some of their own homes.
That candy-striped lighthouse is a beacon of hope.
Having the lighthouse working again gave hope to Hopetown.
So when that lighthouse came back on, it was monumental.
Jeff Patterson, 8 on your side.
There is a lot you can do to prepare for the start of hurricane season. It begins with a personal plan to protect your life. But what about your property? Coming up, something you can do now that could possibly save your home. What can you do to help your home survive a storm? Lee Spann has one important idea you may not have considered until now.
When it comes to getting your house ready for hurricane season, what a lot of people don't think about is that your garage is actually the biggest opening to your house. And if your garage door fails, winds get into your home, and that could take your roof off.
As they think about the glass and the entry doors as being most important.
Daryl Brown with Lowe's Home Improvement came to my home to check out the garage door vulnerability, and mine needs some help before hurricane season. Now, the first option any homeowner has is to get a brand new door rated for hurricane winds. To get a wind-rated single-car garage door installed, it's roughly $1,000 with the permits. There are other, cheaper options for bracing the door, though.
And is that something that anyone could do?
If you have a little bit of handyman in you or handywoman in you, absolutely.
Joshua Pazinski with Lowe's helped me understand the bracing.
As you'll notice on the left and right hand sides, you have full support from your metal tracking, but in the middle is what's most vulnerable because you don't have anything holding it to the ground and you don't have anything holding it to your header here at the top. So using a metal brace will make it so that your door can't flex and won't blow in the event of a high wind storm.
As you can see from this Lowe's video, you will need to drill into the top of the garage above the door and attach a bracket, and into the concrete on the floor. When a storm approaches, attach the metal beam between the two.
If you have a two-car garage, it's recommended that you do 2 braces. If it's a single-car garage, you should do 1 in the middle.
If you don't have this bracing system already in place when a storm comes, as an emergency support, use 2x4s to create the brace. And finally, you can protect the door from the outside.
There are shutter systems. A very popular one nowadays has become a fabric system that you can put on the outside of the home that is both wind load rated and impact rated.
Whatever you choose, now is the time to set it up. Lee Spann, Storm Team 8.
We'll be right back. want to thank you for watching this evening. Remember, hurricane season runs from June 1st through November 30th. But severe storms can happen any time of year, and it only takes one storm to cause disastrous effects. That's why it's important to always be prepared and have your plan in place for surviving the storm. Good night.